Chappell Roan is living proof that it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, and that the only way to prove that you can't get there is if you give up. Because this girl was born in Willard, Missouri, a population of roughly 6,000 people, and in 2022 was literally a barista, a nanny, and working at a drive-thru. And in less than a year, was Olivia Rodrigo's opener for the Guts nationwide tour. Now just did Coachella, had her first song ever debut in the Billboard Top 100. Like, this girl is on a rocket ship of a career, and it is so beautiful once you hear the story of where she came from and all of the horrible things that happened to her in just the few years before she ever released Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, and how much this album has truly changed her life, and how cool it is, I think, that we get to all witness and be a part of the rise of Chappell Roan. So with that, this is the Chappell Roan Effect. Welcome back to the Share Your Screen podcast. My name's Nikki.
Hi, I'm Coco.
And we missed you guys. I am so excited to be here.
I know, we're so excited, and we have our pink crowns on because she's the Midwest princess.
No, literally, a Long Beach princess.
Long Beach princess, Dollar Tree princess.
A Virginia prince and yes. Chappell Roan. Yeah, the Holy Trinity, if you will.
There we go.
As commonly referred to.
They always connect Missouri, Virginia, and Long Beach. And
exactly.
We've always said that.
And it's frequently mentioned in the same sentence.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's like, whatever, you know.
Yeah. So Chappell has a crazy career start. She started playing music at 10 years old, and by the time she was 14, she started posting videos to YouTube. Did you know that Chappell Roan was discovered by Troye Sivan in 2014, and Troy at the time predicted that she was about to be a huge pop star?
No way.
So in 2014, he tweets, "I've had this 16-year-old girl on repeat for 2 months. You have to listen to this, guys. Go send her love." Right? Just tweets that. It's Chappell Roan. No. It's her first ever single, first ever original song she had ever uploaded to YouTube. At the time, you can literally see she only had 6,000 subscribers. The video didn't even have, like, I think 15,000 views. And just one of them happened to be Troye Sivan. So Whoa. He tweets it. Then the reply on thread is Connor Franta, which also, let's talk about, this is a time capsule. Troye Sivan, 2014 Twitter thread started by Troye Sivan with a comment reply of Connor Franta talking about Chappell Roan. Let's put this in the Louvre.
Call Me Maybe was probably playing on repeat. This is so reminiscent to when Justin Bieber discovered Madison Beer around the same time and tweeted about her, same thing.
Such a great, perfect comparison. And literally Connor Franta replies, and he's like, yes, give that vocally blessed goddess her well-deserved promo. Also uses a crown emoji. What are the odds? Right? Doo-doo-doo. Midwest. Ooh-doo-doo. I don't know. I just like seeing weird universe things.
Yeah.
And then, you literally see the post from her old Instagram account. And she was like, 15,000 views and counting. This is amazing. Thank you so much to all who have supported my music. And also thank you so much to Troye Sivan on November 5th, 2014. Right? She's in high school at this point. So.
Wow. 10 years ago.
10 years. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success. What do we always say? Mm-hmm. So that is a very humble early beginning. And also, I know what you're thinking. Nikki, why do all of these screenshots say Kaylee Rose? Well, did you know that Chappell Roan is not actually her real name? Her real name is Kaylee Rose Amastutz. I know I pronounced that name wrong. I'm so sorry.
I'm Stutz. I'm the last person who should try.
No, really. And her grandfather was named Dennis K. Chappell. He died of brain cancer in 2016, and his favorite song was called The Strawberry Roan by Curly Fletcher. So what did she do? She took the stage name in 2017, first year ever she started releasing, as Chappell Roan. And it's cute because she always has mentioned that she hated her original name. And I think it's, again, it's so interesting to see how life sometimes, even the tragic moments, are preparing you or planting the seed for something that is going to sprout literally 7 years after her grandfather's death. But just simply, even little things like that, getting the name Chappell Roan from such a tragic moment and wanting to honor the death of a grandfather is something you can never predict in that misery and that, and I don't know, I just thought that was a really cool, beautiful thing.
I love that. It also is so smart because when I was trying to research the Kaylee Rose EP that she put out, because I saw a TikTok where someone was had a signed copy.
That's
Pop Culture Museum.
Pop Culture Museum.
And I was trying to look up the name, but there were so many Kaylee Roses that
Oh,
I
I
couldn't
bet.
narrow it down. So it's like a branding decision as well to have a name that stands out.
Right. And also, I just think, I don't know, I love the idea of somebody who's like, makes very queer music to be named Chappell.
Yeah, it's like,
Like,
yes.
yeah, it's funny, like a funny
Love that.
dichotomy. So 2017, she moves to Los Angeles after this YouTube video actually got her signed to Atlantic Records. And she's even talked about it in interviews. Like, this was the first time in her life she had ever really been surrounded and accepted for her queerness. I mean, going from a population of 6,000 to West Hollywood. It's a very big change in terms of being an openly queer person. And she said that this really almost like unlocked a creative door in her mind, that like she finally felt like she could write a song as the real me. Like, I'm not pretending to be somebody else in my artistry anymore. I'm now like surrounded by people who get me and get these experiences. And that's something I'm excited to write about, which I thought was so beautiful. So on August 3rd, 2017, she releases her first ever single, Good Hurt. And also September 22nd of that year, she releases her first ever EP. And I don't know what happened with Atlantic Records. I mean, I think there's like a notorious, I feel like everybody's first record deal is always not good for artists. But like, just looking, so like the first opener she ever did, Dance Joy in 2017. And then in 2018, it was Declan McKenna, which I love both of those artists, truly. But never in my mind would I associate Chappell Roan with Vance Joy.
Right.
Like, it's just not her music.
Yeah, it's like even I looked up the EP when I was getting ready to do research, and even the cover art was kind of odd, and like it almost felt like every record label in 2017 was trying to find their next Billie Eilish.
Yes.
And that's exactly how it felt to me. And yeah.
That, I think that's probably pretty accurate. Like, they were trying to essentially make like an indie Billie Eilish.
Yeah.
Because I think they liked the idea of her being this Midwest girl. And I think that's why they put her with, you know, these, again, like more folky indie music that's going to appeal in that demographic. So like, I think that was their vision for her. But then when you look at her opening for like an Olivia Rodrigo, like you see how clearly the image they had was not right. Like, it was not what she was meant to do or what was going to work for her. So fast forward to 2020, Chappell starts to work with producer Dan Nigro to create the song Pink Pony Club. And Dan Nigro, if you're familiar with the name, being the same producer who, you know, later on that year went to work on a little album called Sour by Olivia Rodrigo. Wow. So once the once Sour and Driver's License started to take off, this was the first and only time they really worked together at that time. But did you know that Pink Pony Club is based off of the first time Chappell Roan ever went to the Abbey?
No way.
Like,
in
the
WeHo?
Abbey and WeHo is what that song is about.
You have to give context to what that is for anyone who doesn't know.
It's just like the gay bar in West Hollywood, I guess. Like, it's the biggest one for sure. I wouldn't say it's a personal favorite, nor is it, but it's like the most popular. It's
and
the
there's
biggest.
a chapel.
There is a chapel in it.
That's weird.
That's weird. And it's like, if you listen to the lyrics, it's really her, again, talking about this feeling of like essentially being a Los Angeles transplant, like moving from this Midwest town to West Hollywood. And what is her mom going to think of the things she's doing? Wow. And I really love that, I guess, just as somebody who moved here from the East Coast and like did not grow up in a openly queer area at all. I went to a school of 2,000 people was the population of my school, and there were I was one of 3 openly gay people. So like, granted, many of them are gay now, as we all know. But like, it was just like not like there was no queer teachers, there was no queer parents. Like, that was not happening where I was from. So I think it's really cool to almost like write about the concept of like a culture shock, even though it's not something that like, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah,
it was just interesting. And I think that was like a really, really cool thing to write about.
Yeah. And it was like authentic to her, whereas it's not the label trying to force something else on her. And I also want to add to your point about the producer Dan Nigro, because he's almost becoming a kingmaker in the way that, for anyone who doesn't know what that term might be in the industry, it's these producers who are able to spot talent. You think Quincy Jones, you think Jack Antonoff, Max Martin with Britney Spears, and they kind of have this magic touch where they select these artists to work with, and then those artists just blow up as well. They're obviously talented, but it's almost like he's becoming the new generation's kingmaker.
Totally, especially for these like young pop girls.
Yeah.
Like that is like really like a demographic I guess he understands musically. And I think that's like one of the most, again, like when we talked about this in the Olivia Rodrigo episode, like one of the most interesting things about her career to me has always been like she was, when she wrote Driver's License, the only teenager making pop music for teenagers. Like we, you know, if you think about the pop music we grew up with, it's Taylor Swift, it's Ariana, it's Miley Cyrus, it's Demi, it's Selena, and all these people are in their 30s now and still very, very successful and still making music, but it's like a 30-year-old can't write about getting her driver's license. You know what I mean? It's like not a life experience that they can write about. So like I thought it was so like that's one of the things that really drew me to Olivia in the beginning was like, oh, I think it's really cool that you're like writing about this from a current lived experience, and that's not really happening in pop music right now. And I think Chappell is kind of the same way. You know, like you think of how like country the industry is going and how she is blowing up for like hyper femme gay pop is really, really interesting. But after 2020, she starts to have a falling out with her record label.
Chappell Roan was dropped from Atlantic Records in 2020 for not being profitable enough. And I'm sure they're kicking themselves right now.
Kicking themselves.
I love stories like this. It reminds me of Ray, who we need to do an effect video on her, where it's like the label, you know, kind of, I think, so, and I don't know for sure. I always assume the best in people, but it's almost like they kind of hoard artists, but don't need all of them to like make it. But it's like, if I have this person, even if they don't get famous, at least our competitor can't sign them as well. And it's like, they're just hoarding people. And anyways, and so she seems to have had like a bad experience. I listened to a few podcasts that she did. She was on Blonde Hair, Black Heart podcast, and she said that, at the time, it was like they wanted her to make sad and mysterious music. Again, I'm guessing was a reference to like the Billie Eilish that everyone wanted them to do, and that it just wasn't taking off. And then once she moved to LA, like you said, and she was around more queer people, she realized that she can make fun and lighthearted pop anthems, and that's when it took off. And it's like really just proof that we always say on the podcast, you should only pay attention to trends so that you can do the opposite and give people what they're missing. Or like maybe the trend does suit you and you do it, but like don't pay attention to trends to chase them. Do it because then you're like, okay, there's a spot in the zeitgeist that's not being itched because everyone's itching over here.
Exactly.
And she kind of did that.
No, that's a perfect, I love the itch metaphor. That was really good. Like, and I think that's so true for tons of artists, and like going back to Olivia, and also I think understanding too that like if you don't feel like you're like like if you're really craving a specific type of music and you can't find it, somebody else out there is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is not a mutually exclusive experience to just you. And if you are experiencing this problem, maybe it's because that was a problem you were meant to solve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not necessarily like, oh, no one's doing it, so that means I can't do it. It's like, no one's doing it, so you should do it. You know what I mean?
I love that. Yeah, I love whenever I'm having a rut with videos, I go, what's a video that I really want to watch right now, but I can't find anywhere? Maybe I'm meant to try and make something like that.
I love that. Yeah. And going off of this, after Chappell got ditched by her label, she was broken up with by her relationship of 4 years in the same week. And I believe this is the girl she went on to write My Kink is Karma about.
Such a good song, underrated.
It's my favorite one. I think it's Brian's Red Wine Supernova, but it's my second favorite. So I think that's what My Kink is Karma is about, is because this girl like hit her at her lowest. Wow. And now that she's at her highest, she's like, aren't you like eat shit? Yes. Essentially. Yeah. Like I bet you're kicking yourself. And I thought that was so cool. So again, going back to Chappell working with Dan Nigro, also I think the interesting thing is that technically Chappell started working with Dan before Olivia did, I believe. So it's interesting once, you know, he'd worked with Chappell on Pink Pony Club, but then that was the last thing she ever released with Atlantic. Then Dan helps with Driver's License, and the song blows up. So Olivia's label is like, he's gonna be booked and busy for the next 2 years. Like, we're gonna make an album real quick, and like so. After all of this, Chappell went back to working as a production assistant. She was a barista. She was a nanny. And even at one point, she had to move back to Missouri because she couldn't financially support herself and make music at the same time. So she was working as a drive-through in Missouri again, just so she could go back to writing music as an independent artist. And again, talking about how the universe is preparing you for things that you can't even fathom yet. So she does that for 2 years. 2 years. And I'm sure in that 2 year period, she thought her career was over. I would be miserable.
And the ego hit of like, you're the one who got out of your hometown and got this big break. And then it's like,
had to go back.
you're back at the drive-thru. But like really being humble enough and knowing like you're not too good for any job and like just like still working at it in silence, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I think it sometimes takes this almost near delusional sense of self-confidence to like be successful. Like even if literally nobody else on planet Earth believes in you, you have to believe in yourself. Like this is a girl who just had to leave Los Angeles to work in a drive-thru in Missouri. And she was like, oh, I'm going to be a pop star.
Yeah.
I'm going to, like, that is like almost a beautiful near sense of delusion, which I think is so cool.
And obviously her and Olivia are friends now, but I wonder if there was this kind of like looking in the mirror, what could have been seeing the success of Olivia, someone who was producing with this person around the same time. And like, now it's like come full circle and is like this like celebrated thing. And they're such a good duo together on tour, but it was probably a reminder hearing the Sour album, like, oh, I was so close to something like that.
Yeah. Or that could have been me.
Could have been me. Yeah.
I'm sure. And so anyways, fast forward these 2 years. We're in 2022 now. She finally saves enough money. She moves back to LA. But she's still like working at a donut shop in Los Angeles. And she gets a publishing deal with Sony. So they're like publishing her music. But she's continuing to release as an independent artist. But now she's finally able to make music with Dan Nigro again.
Okay.
So they produced her first 2 singles now as an independent artist. Number 1 being Naked in Manhattan. Number 2 being Femininomenon. And did you know that Femininomenon was actually supposed to be the album title? It was not supposed to be Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess.
Wait, why?
The only reason she didn't do it is she said she started telling her friends the album title and they couldn't repeat it back to her.
When I was typing out notes, I was...
Say it. Try saying that 3 times fast.
It was like the, did you know there's a tunnel under Ocean Boulevard acronym from last episode where it's like, ooh.
No, literally. So she realized, she was like, oh, like people can't search this. They can't tell their friends about it. Or if they tell their friends about it, their friend can't find it.
Yeah.
So she made the album title Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess and instead made Femininomenon the like first track.
Okay.
Which I thought was a really cool thing. And again, talking about foresight and understanding like, you know, your art, your career as a musician was really, really cool. So she actually ends up opening for Olivia Rodrigo's Sour Tour, which I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know that happens. Like I knew she opened for Guts, but this was like, I guess so. I mean, she hadn't even released an album at this point. Wow. So it's interesting that her and Olivia have had this like connection for that long. And then she also opened for Fletcher's Girl of My Dreams tour. Wow. And then after that, she released her 3rd ever single, Casual, which was like the first song I think that really put her on the map.
It's how I found her, was Casual.
I think that was the first Chappell song I remember hearing.
Wow.
And it's interesting because she had started writing this song with Dan Nigro in 2020. So it likely would have been the song she released next under Atlantic had they not dropped her.
Kicking themselves.
Is so funny. But again, it's like, life is meant to, weird things are meant to happen to you in life, even the tragic ones. I really believe that. Like, just seeing that, like, because had she released that through them, then they may have owned it, and she might not have been able to, you know, have this like great career that she has now. So, she releases that in 2022. And then in 2023, she does her first ever solo tour called Naked in North America.
That's such a funny title. Sorry, I just realized the title in Naked in Manhattan. Oh my God.
No, it's so good. Naked in Manhattan, Naked in North America.
She's good at branding. If this doesn't, like, I mean, it's working out, but
we're going to talk about that.
Marketing, girl.
I literally think, like, it's honestly, one of the things she's best at as an artist.
So
like,
good.
Her understanding of, like, the visual
branding
and the experience. Like, every concert show has a theme. She's so good at that.
Wow.
She's so good at that. So this was her first tour, but it was only 8 shows.
Okay.
Tiny tour. But later that year, she signs to Island Records. And Island is a label with like Sabrina Carpenter, Shawn Mendes, Demi Lovato, Coi Leray, Bon Jovi, The Killers, and more. So like I think it seems like this was a label that got her. And also I think too, it's a label that had got her after she released like Casual and Femininomenon. And so I think they understood the sound she was trying to create a bit better now. And those songs were successful. So
can I
please
pop in to say a prediction? I think that she is going to work with Demi Lovato or do like a Spotify cover, BBC Radio cover, because in one of the podcast I was listening to, she said that like he's like, what song you wish she wrote? Like one song. She's like, cool for the summer.
I watched that exact same interview.
Oh my god.
Yep. No, I would love that. I would love that. Also, let's talk about it. Cool for the summer rock version.
Oh my god.
When Demi, it's so good.
Yeah, I love when Demi does rock.
Me too. She honestly would crush a rock album. Let's talk about it.
And we've always said that.
I've actually said that coming out the womb.
Exactly.
No, it was my first words.
Yeah.
It was my first words. So May 17th, it all changes because she releases Red Wine Supernova. And honestly, in the beginning, this song did not really take off the way we know it now in terms of streams. It was highly critically acclaimed. And when I did research, there was actually like multiple publications, even Billboard, that put it in like their top 50 songs of the year list.
Wow.
Before it blew up. Again, this is before Guts Tour. This is before Tiny Desk, any of it. Like just, it was very highly reviewed in terms of like critics, but it did not have the streams. Like I think it
didn't have
had
casual streams. Like
no,
I felt like
even
I never heard
casual,
of.
I think was like under 10 million streams at this point.
Yeah.
Like it was not huge in terms of scale, but it was very, anybody who heard it was like, oh, like this is an artist who's about to blow up. And then it really, I think, started to go viral with the Guts Tour. That's when I remember really being like, okay, who is this girl?
Yeah.
Was when I saw videos of this song at Guts. And then the second the NPR Tiny Desk concert came out, I was like, oh, it's game on. It's game on. That, it's so fascinating. So I have this visual, I'll put it on screen, of like, you can see how much her like streaming has charted, or like how much her streaming has like surged based off of like different events in her life. So like you see this like massive boost for like when she's on Guts Tour.
Wow.
I wish they included like, where was NPR Tiny Desk in this?
I know.
Maybe I'll like try and put a circle on screen in editing, but like I just it was everywhere. Like that Tiny Desk performance was everywhere. And I think it was also like people really realized, one, the visuals. Like I'm talking about the lip sync thing you were talking about earlier.
Yes. Oh yeah. So did you know that in Chappell Roan's Tiny Desk performance for NPR that went viral, she did the lipstick smudged on her teeth on purpose. And the makeup artist, Sterling Toole, posted a TikTok confirming this and was like, yes, it was on purpose. And I just think that, again, I think it's a take on like the entire album to me is about conformity and the pursuit of conformity. Chappell Roan, she's dressed as a pageant queen, us here. And yet you become a silly caricature. You become absurd in the pursuit of conformity. And it's like a prince, like a, being a pageant queen, and yet it's not who you really are, and you have lipstick smudged on your teeth. Like it's like the pursuit of conformity is actually what makes you stand out in a bad way sometimes. And that was my take on the lipstick on the teeth.
Totally. And I mean, also, I just think even the fact that like, if you look at it, the lipsticks, like the color of lipsticks, the same color as her hair. All of the background singers are all wearing pink too and stuff. Like her ability is just like craft these visuals, or even the bit where in the middle of the performance, she takes out a flip phone that's like bedazzled and pretends to start texting. I'm confident she was not sending a text message.
No.
Confident. I think she knew that was going to get clipped and go viral.
She's a performance artist. Like it's like even when she's not doing the music.
Yes, and that is what I love about. I actually think it's like one of the like her genius. Truly, like obviously, I mean, she has it all. Very rarely do I think we get an artist that has like the vocals, the writing, and then some sort of like performance aspect or visual.
Yes.
For some people it's dancing, like they're great dancers, and for Chappell, I think it's like this caricature she's created. Like it's this Midwest princess, this very over the top, this very super openly queer, talking about literally writing songs about getting eaten out in the passenger seat. Like nobody's doing that, right?
No.
And like she has created this in her mind, and then who are the people that's drawn to it? Queer people. Like it makes so much sense, and I think that is so cool and again so important as an artist. I think someone else who's really great at this is Ice Spice.
Yeah,
like she's not a dancer, like she actually, in fact, most of the time she's like standing in place, but she knows how to craft this like image around herself.
Yes, and there's this is not my idea. I saw a few videos on it, but that you have a good brand if someone can draw you as a cartoon character.
Yeah.
And I think Chappell has that Ice Spice.
Totally.
I think Sabrina's trying to find that with this like Bridget Bardot, old Hollywood. Like you kind of see artists now clamoring to try and find that branding of like, what would your bobblehead look like?
Right. Or what would I always like to make the joke, like, in cartoons when they open up the closet and it's like all the same, like outfit.
Yes.
It's like, if you're opening up the closet of your cartoon character, like what are they seeing in that? You know what I mean? So after this is when she does Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess. Actually, this came out before. I didn't write the date on here. I'm so sorry. But
it starts trending.
Yes.
I remember around the NPR desk, it started trending. And
her official tour for it was September to November, and then of 2023. And then February of this year, February to April was when she was the opener for Guts. And again, like you can see how much this like spike in streams is of her just simply like opening for Olivia.
Yeah, it's apparent, and I think you can tell also like her rise because I reached out to this is how you know someone goes big is when they take the email out of their bio. But I reached out to her in like October. She had an email in her bio, and I was like, "Hi, like I'd love to interview her on one of my shows. Like just let me know whatever, like this whatever." And her team's like, "Oh yeah, like we're interested, but she's about to go on tour. They hadn't announced, I don't think, the Guts tour yet, but they're like she's about to go on tour, and we'll let you know." And then like and then in February of this year, like she started blowing up. I think it was actually like a few weeks ago. I like circled back and then I didn't hear back, but I think it's just because they're probably swamped now.
Oh, and
like
I also think
she blew up this year.
Yes, and I also think so often they don't anticipate it to blow up.
Right, they don't know.
I think they're like, okay, like opening for Olivia is a big opportunity for her, and they know that.
Yeah.
But do you know how many times people open for an artist and nothing happens?
Yeah.
All the time.
Or they have so many openers you don't even know. Like Gail opened for Taylor Swift's Eras tour, and like it wasn't as big as say like Sabrina Carpenter. Didn't mean it was bad. It was just like there's so many openers sometimes that you just don't know which one's gonna stick.
So I think that is like such an interesting thing. And then on April 5th, she releases Good Luck, Babe. Let's talk about it.
It's so good. And we got to see it live at Coachella for the first time.
It was Chappell-chella.
It was
and I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm not afraid. There was one headliner for Nikki Reardon, and it was Chappell Roan.
And I also was looking at the Genius. I love looking at like how many people have viewed Genius lyrics for like artists because you can really tell their popularity there.
Yeah.
And Chappell Roan's like Casual was at like 50K, Red Wine Supernova around the same, but Good Luck Babe, it just came out. It was at over almost 300,000 people had searched the lyrics.
Whoa.
Which just shows the popularity of it.
Well, this is her most popular song based on where it is. Obviously, the other ones that have been out for years have more streams, but it's her first song to ever debut on the Billboard Top 100.
Oh, wow.
And just look at like the spike in her streams.
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. And I think it's at like 10 million streams now. And oh my God. Which is crazy because Chappell Roan to this day, I think has like 8 million monthly listeners. Like she's like, it's like so rapid. It is literally, I mean, it started when she went on tour with Olivia in February. That was 2 months ago. Like that is takes 10 years to be an overnight success.
And there was this waiting period. And in one of the interviews I watched, I think it was Zane Lowe, she was telling him like there was 1,000 bad shows that I did. Like, and they're like, God bless those bad shows, like bad performances where it was just like that, like, to be an expert in something, you need to put in so many hours. And it was like years, a decade of performing to no one. And then eventually everyone's there.
And like seeing her at Coachella was like unreal.
I think that she was too early in the day for how big her crowd was. And like, I think that the way that I described Chappell, and we saw a lot of performance and it was great for everyone, but there was this energy in Chappell's performance that everyone who was there was witnessing what was about to be. Yes. And it was like witnessing what was about to be a meteoric rise. Like we were there on the cusp before it's about to happen.
Yes. It's literally like, maybe I'm inflating, but it's like this is like the equivalent to like Lana in 2014 Coachella.
Yes.
Where she was like a sub-headliner, not big,
on a big stage.
And then like 3 years after that, she's all anybody was talking about was Lana Del Rey.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I felt watching Chappell.
Yeah.
And also I think one of the most interesting things to me was like every single person was a fan in that tent. Like, I went to the Sabrina Carpenter set, and way more people in terms of quantity. Not every single person was singing every single lyric to every single song.
Right.
At the Chappell tent, you were singing. You were singing. You were dancing. People were screaming. People were crying. Like, so it was insane. And I was like, okay, this is the power of like a niche community.
Yes.
Like, she doesn't need to be the biggest artist. She doesn't need to appeal to everybody. She's not trying to appeal to everybody. But the people who love her ride for her. And I think that is why, again, like this meteoric rise happens when you have such like a niche fandom. And honestly, I think it's like one of my favorite things about Chappell too. Like, or even like for other aspiring artists out there. Like, I really think there's so much power in targeting like a highly populated but niche group in an underrepresented area. So example for her is queer people in the Midwest, right? Rise and fall of a Midwest princess. There is no other artist out there whose like target audience is queer people in the Midwest. And also, I think even just using the term Midwest is so smart because it's subject to interpretation. You can be in Nevada and call yourself Midwest. You can be in Tennessee and call yourself Midwest. They're literally thousands of miles apart from each other. Do you know how many people are in, like, it's like 60% of the United States.
Yeah.
But by just saying Midwest, people identify it as like, this is an artist for me. Like, this is an artist talking about us. Even like specifically queer stuff, like in the Midwest where it's not as openly acceptable and like to be like, oh no, like these are my people. I'm from this area. These are the people I'm trying to reach. This was my experience growing up in this area. I want to sing about that. Like that is so cool to me. And I think like that is how I felt about Troye Sivan in 2014 when I was like a kid, like listening to like Blue Neighborhood and being like, oh, well, like there's like this gay guy out there who like has similar experiences to writing about things like that, like writing about your first relationship, writing about leaving home in pursuit of trying to find more people like you and stuff like that. And I think that's how Chappell is. And like people will think about her in the same way in like a decade from now, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
But what is your favorite Chappell Roan song?
Mine right now is Naked in Manhattan.
Really?
After seeing it live and she's like, touch me, touch me, touch me. And then she's like, ha, ha. Like her vocals, she's like bending backwards, upside down. And I think that, okay, I'm paging all the hot people of TikTok, okay? It's time you get your...
listen.
Yeah, right. You're like, fine. It's time you guys get your asses up and work. We need to make Naked in Manhattan trend on TikTok, on Instagram Reels, on YouTube Shorts. If you can dance and you're hot, there's no excuse that you aren't practicing your P's and Q's, making a dance to Naked in Manhattan.
Let's talk about it.
And we've always said that. And I can't be the one to hold that baton, but I'm passing it. I think that it is going to be her next song to trend. And yes, it was on her album, but seeing it live, I was like, there's something here. Touch me, touch me,
and you know
touch
what?
me.
I'll do you one better. Let's get the dance crew who did the thing for Jungle.
There we go.
Let's get it. I'm paging
Cameras.
you specifically. You specifically, I need you to choreograph. It's your time.
Yes.
Naked in Manhattan.
Yes. It's such a good song. I didn't even know her tour was called Naked in North America until you mentioned
That's
that.
so good, though.
It's
What a
good.
good title.
What's your favorite?
I think it's Red Wine Supernova. That song's unreal good.
Nikki was blasting it in the shower at Coachella. Like I knew you were showering because I would just hear the music. Like,
oh, baby. I wish I was kidding when I say this. For the past 3 weeks, the past 21 days of my life, without fail, the first thing I have done since waking up, get up, walk outside, walk to get my little morning coffee, and listen to Red Wine Supernova. It is the first thing I've ever done. That song just, it gives me adrenaline.
you might be in her top like 1% on Spotify.
It's going to be insane. Wow. And my second favorite is My Kink is Karma. And we've talked about this. I love songs that talk about toxic breakups and not wanting your ex to do well. I hate it. I hate when people, I just wish the best for them. And, you know, like I'm really thinking about.
I don't.
I'm sorry, I don't. There is no bench on Team Nikki. Okay,
No.
you are on the roster or you're not allowed in the stadium.
Yeah.
There's no in between.
No.
There is no in between. I'm not wishing you the best. Get out.
You had the best. How can I wish you the best when you had the best?
And let's talk about it.
And we've always
let's
said that.
talk about it. You had the best and you lost it. I'm
Why
so
am I gonna
sorry
wish
for
you
you.
the best?
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye. And My Kink is Karma. My Kink is Karma. You dye your hair. You're panicking. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Even in the song when she's like, people might say it's jealousy, but like,
no.
I want you to do bad.
No, I want you to do bad. Yes. And I'm not afraid to admit it. And I also love that her whole sound is like really kind of 80s inspired, I think too, which is weirdly seeing this resurgence specifically with gay people. Troy, Conan, Chappell. All three really kind of leaning into this 80s sound in different ways.
Wow.
Like
you're right.
Troy's a bit more techno. Conan's a bit more Freddie Mercury.
Yes.
And Chappell's a bit more girl pop.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, interesting. Again, what is like the book Big Magic you always talk about? Where like when great people have, and when there's a great idea, coincidentally, like multiple people have it at the same time.
Exactly. It's like why sometimes trends happen and stuff, and it's this philosophy, whether you believe it or not, but that ideas float around the world like clouds, and they'll latch onto people, and they'll see if that person brings it to life. And if you don't bring it to life, it's going to bounce to someone else.
Yeah.
And like that's why if you've ever had an idea for something for a video, and then you like never like had time to film it, and then you see a video go viral a week later,
Someone
and you're
else
like,
made it.
whoa, how, like
I've had that happen to me multiple times.
yeah,
It's crazy.
the cloud.
It is literally the cloud.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And that is, I guess, I think about Chappell Roan. I don't know. Also, I think one more important thing to call out at the end is that Chappell has gotten some criticism for her drag queen look from people in the drag community. And I would like to be clear, I am not a drag queen.
Right.
I have never done drag. I'm a gay man, but like drag, it is not my community. It's not my art form. But I kind of like disagree with this criticism for a few reasons. One, I think it's important that like she's really paid a lot of homage and done a lot for the community. Like $1 of every single one of her ticket sales went to the For the Girls nonprofit, which works with trans women in the Midwest. And then also on every single stop on her tour, the only openers were drag queens, specifically local drag queens. Also, if you're a drag queen watching this, she's casting for her next tour. And she posted it on her Instagram story today. So like, one, I think it's important that it's like she's not just like profiting off of it without trying to give back to the community. And two, I very much felt this way, different circumstance, but when like there was like a lot of criticism of like Kit Connor for like queer baiting and Harry Styles for like queer baiting and stuff. In a few ways. One, I would like to say I understand the frustration of like people who have been drag queens for decades and then like young pretty white girl like does it and isn't really actually doing it in a club for dollar tips and like gets all your hopes and dreams. Like I can sympathize with that frustration. But to me, like I'll use it, like I'll draw the queer baiting comparison because I think that's like something I can identify with a bit stronger as a gay man. Is like to me, like people talking about like Kit Connor and stuff. One, it's like I just don't like, or talking about Harry Styles and like what he was like wearing and stuff like that. To me, the goal is like to destigmatize this idea of anybody telling anybody what to wear, right? Like I don't think gay people in the Midwest should be being beat up because they're wearing a crop top. And like we all agree that that's wrong, right? So the goal is to change that behavior. And yeah, it's a little frustrating that like a pretty white male pop star gets to do it and all the girls are like, oh my God, he's so hot, blah, blah, blah. But when a gay person does it, it's like annoying. I get that. I feel that way. But to me, I'm like, if that's what it takes to make this stop happening to people, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Like if we need a Harry Styles to fucking do it or whatever, like I'm not gonna sit here and tell him what he can and can't wear when my goal is to remove that stigmatization in its entirety. You know what I mean? And like that's kind of how I feel about like Chappell and drag is like I want more people to be accepting and like appreciate this art form that has literally existed for centuries. And you see how much like the RuPaul show has like really blown up the community in the past decade and stuff. And I'm like, it's great if somebody can hit mainstream pop music doing that. Like that's a good thing for the community. It will be a good thing. Like, so I don't know. And again, I'm not a drag queen. I don't want to like speak for other people. That's just my 2 cents about it. And I think it's important to acknowledge like that criticism of her.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's a huge part of her branding and the brilliance of her branding is she said in the multiple interviews I listened to and multiple times throughout every single one of them, she brought up drag queens, how they've influenced her, how they've personally helped her in branding. Right. And she even said in one of them that she was confused as to what she was going to be as an artist. And one of the drag queens that she was performing with was like, Chappell Roan's a drag queen. Like, you're a drag queen. And then she said that's when the branding clicked for her.
Interesting.
And kind of gave her permission to like lean into this kind of caricature, I guess. And so, yeah, at least from the interviews I've listened to, she pays homage a lot and like talks about it openly being a huge influence for her.
Yeah, and I think it's like appreciation, not exploitation. Like at least that's very much the tone I get in listening to her talk about it.
Yeah.
Is like she was like so. And I even think you think of a song like Pink Pony Club. That's kind of what she's describing. It's like these go-go dancers and these drag queens like living so unapologetically on this stage, and how that is a concept that was like once so foreign to her, and now she's like so excited to be a part of. And I think I think that shows in the artistry, and I think is cool.
Do you think she'll be a guest judge on the next season of RuPaul's Drag
absolutely.
Race?
Maybe not next season.
Yeah, maybe.
But she has to be at some point. I guess a judge on RuPaul's Drag Race. That'd be everything.
Yeah, I could see it.
They need to have a dance battle to Red Wine Supernova. Let's talk about it.
Oh my god.
Or Naked in Manhattan. Let's talk about it.
We need the hot people that can dance. There we go.
We need the hot people that can dance. That includes drag queens.
Yes, they can make it trend if anyone can.
They can make it trend. So, I don't know. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I don't have any closing thoughts on Chappell. I think you did a great job covering it, but
please,
unless you have thoughts, I'd love to just shout out some of our podcasts.
Oh my god, we had a huge milestone, team.
Which one? I feel like we have so many milestones. Woo! We got to number 108 on Spotify overall.
That's insane.
And you said someone at Spotify let you know.
They said there's 5 million podcasts on Spotify, and we're almost in the top 100. We're 8 spots away.
You guys share this podcast. Honestly, it was Nikki's 10 million viewed clip on TikTok from the Kylie Jenner episode that was like our tipping point, I think.
It was a weird tipping point.
It was crazy.
It was a weird, and well, first of all, anyone, if you came from that video, welcome. We're so happy to have you, and thank you for joining.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it was a weird moment.
It was. And I'm glad that it happened when it did, because so many comments and reviews were like, oh my gosh, I went back and binged episodes. But I think if it was our first episode, people might forget because they didn't have other episodes. And that was really cool. I think that if we get in the top 100 of Spotify in general, then I will bring balloons to that episode where we celebrate. Okay, other charts. We're number 3 marketing in United States.
Period.
And we got number 45 business in the United States overall. When I was looking at the charts today, again, they kind of fluctuate. We were number 1 in Romania for marketing.
You know what? Let's talk about it.
Romania.
And I've always said that the Romanian population has great taste in marketing audio media.
And we've always said that.
I have been saying that for years, actually.
When we launched it, we were like, how do we get number 1 in Romania marketing?
That's actually what we've been doing. That's the last episode, guys.
Exactly.
The simulation is completed.
We did it.
But thank you if you're listening from Romania, thank you.
Hi. We're number 2 in Congo for marketing. Thank you, Congo. We love you guys. We're number 5 in Australia, and we're number 4 in New Zealand. And when we were at Coachella, Nikki and I were trying to figure out how to look at the charts. I could be wrong, but it said that we were number 2 in marketing in Ireland and Mexico. And that was our thing the whole weekend. Like anytime like we would be going anywhere, we're like, do they know that they're in the presence of the number 2 marketing podcast in Ireland and Mexico?
That's what I'm saying. And it's like, we actually
a lot of pressure.
Like we couldn't even go outside on St. Patrick's Day anymore.
We have to lay low. Dude, Cinco de Mayo's coming up. We're gonna have to lay low. we're gonna get mobbed on the streets.
No, I know.
I'm scared. And then I just want to read 2 reviews. One, there was one YouTube comment that I just have to note where it said, it's so funny. It made us laugh. We sent it in our chat. They go, is it a bit now that Nikki brings up Troye Sivan in every episode? So we're gonna have to bring it up in every episode now.
No, I wish it was a bit.
It just happens. No, and it's just a normal convo to you guys. It's not like it's a facade.
It's like truly. You'll find out when we do the Troye Sivan effect, the deep lore.
There's Nikki lore.
Between Nikki's love and admiration for Troye Sivan.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think my brain is thinking about him 24 hours a day. Like it's not. It doesn't turn off.
No.
You know, they're like, is Nikki trying? I'm like, no. It's like I'm trying not to talk about him.
Yeah. Exactly.
And sometimes it slips through.
Yeah. And 2 reviews that we got. One was from Stella, and she said, I was a podcast hater before just because I got bored easily, but then I saw a clip on TikTok and I found myself captivated. Love the flow of how he talks too. So thank you, Stella. And then another one was from IT and IT. I found these 2 smart, talented people from YouTube Shorts. Also, from YouTube Shorts, shout out.
That's crazy.
I'm scared of YouTube Shorts, but if they brought us 1 subscriber, it was worth it. I'm thrilled to learn they have a podcast. It's thought out, but it's like friends chatting. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for these reviews.
Dude, thank you so much. And seriously, like, words cannot express how much even just like a simple 5-star review helps for stuff like this and how much we appreciate it. Also, I would like to say thank you so much. There were so many people who came up to us at Coachella.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, so
Thank
many.
you. And if you guys
It
took
was so
photos,
nice.
please post them and tag us on Instagram stories because I want to see all the photos that we got with
please,
fans.
or even like in the past week, I've been noticing so many people tag us on Instagram stories just like when they're listening to the episode. I love it.
It makes
I
my
love
day.
it. If you post on your story and tag it, we will reshare it.
Yes.
We are obsessed. It makes my day.
Bonus points. I love when you guys post like the setting of what you're doing. Like you're in your car with your coffee or like I love like knowing where you guys listen. Maybe comment on YouTube like where you guys listen because that kind of helps me figure out like how to, anyways. People at Coachella were like, oh my God, it's the #2 podcast in like Ireland and Mexico. We're like, oh my God, we're trying to keep a low profile.
Exactly. And then we were like James Charles that one year where he said he had to hire security. Remember that? Oh my God. Also, after going Coachella for the first time, I realized, I'm like, you do not need security, dude. Like,
No,
there's
Maddie
like
Healy.
actual real famous people walking around that are completely fine.
Maddie Healy was like in line at the bar next to us and like no one cared.
And
Like
you think
you're
James
fine.
Charles needs security?
No, one time I was at Coachella and these people I was with, it was right when he was starting to get famous and they're like, are you James Charles? And he goes, thank you. And I expect nothing less.
That's iconic.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, we